Hey guys, so today I'm going to be doing my April wrap up, and this is actually just going to be the second half of April because the first half of April I wrapped up in my winter wrap up video that I did. I read 3 books in total from like the midpoint to the end of the month, and all of these books I enjoyed. So they're all books I would recommend, books I had a really good time reading, and spoilers, I gave all of these books 4.5 stars. So yeah, it's a very positive wrap up here. It's going to be a little shorter because it's only 3 books, but I'm really excited to talk about these books. And if you've seen some of my recent reading vlogs and you've seen me talk about definitely the guest list, I don't know if I talked about any of the others, but let me just get into those 3 books. So as I just mentioned, the first book I read in the second part of April was The Guest List by Lucy Foley. This is a thriller, and I picked this with my book of the month, and I really enjoyed it. It was a super quick read. And my favorite part of this whole story was the setting. So a little backstory, if you haven't yet heard anything about this, I don't know how because the buzz for this book is insane, but it is well worth it. So this is a murder thriller mystery following a wedding party, and the whole story takes place over a weekend. So this wedding is taking place on a very small deserted island off of the coast of Ireland, and when the book opens, you don't know who's dead or who did it. You're just slowly kind of piecing the pieces together as the weekend unfolds for us, and it was fantastic. I loved that this had different character perspectives throughout the whole story. So you're really getting a lot of backstory for the bride herself, the bride's sister, who is the maid of honor, the best man, the wedding planner, and the plus one, so one of the bridal parties, his wife. So kind of like more of an outsider. So really enjoyed this. If you like dark secrets, if you like drama, definitely would recommend. The ending had me so surprised, and I was really happy that I was surprised because I, kind of thought I had a few things figured out, which it kind of leads you to believe a few things are the way they are before they're fully revealed, but there still were things that I did not see coming. So I enjoyed it. Like I said, my favorite thing about this was the setting, and it was perfect because when I was reading it, it was really dark and gloomy, and it just made for the perfect reading experience. I loved this like forgotten, kind of haunted almost island, and it was like really windy and eventually stormy, and it really was a good scene setting. So I'm really happy that I read that, and I think I'm going to read another book by this author because she also wrote some other books, or at least one other book I know of. So hoping to read that soon, but 4.5 stars. Really enjoyed it. If you like thrillers, would recommend. Next, I read another kind of thriller, but it's really more of like a historical mystery. So this takes place in, I think 1896 is the year, in New York City, and it's following this serial killer who is targeting young male prostitutes in New York City. And these 3 characters, kind of including Theodore Roosevelt, which is just very bizarre to me that the president is in this, but at the time he's not the president, he's the commissioner. And it's following them trying to find out who the murderer is, but it's really at this point in history where forensics and things like that are really coming to light, and so there's a lot of new ways of investigation that are being used in this book, and they kind of start to piece together the picture of the killer because they don't know how to track down this killer at all. So they basically, using like psychological profiling, they're trying to get an idea for who the killer is, and eventually they found, their picture of the killer to then find the killer. Really interesting. I probably did a really bad job explaining that, but what I liked about this, it felt like an intelligent read in a way that the learning was really interesting to me, and I just loved how they approached it. So our characters, as I mentioned, Theodore Roosevelt, he's kind of like not exactly in the main 3 party. You have Chrysler, who is like a psychologist, little weird and quirky, but I really liked him. He's the doctor character. You have the reporter for the Times, which I'm assuming is this guy. Like, I haven't seen the show, but this is just my guess. And then she's like a secretary for the police department, but they're all kind of working together, and it's really good. Like, it's a really long thriller. It's 550 pages or so, which thrillers usually are on the shorter side, but there is so much material that's packed into this book that I think it could have been a little smaller, but it still held my attention the whole time, and I really enjoyed it. Nathan got me this book for Christmas 2 Christmases ago, and it only took until libraries were closed for me to finally pick it up, and I'm so glad that I did because It was a really great read. I have not yet seen the show. It's not available anymore on Netflix or Hulu or Prime, so I'm really kind of disappointed. I was hoping to watch the show after, but I did start listening to the soundtrack at one point when I was reading this, and I had to stop because it creeped me out way too much. I have to say, this book didn't really give me creepy feelings, but when I listened to the soundtrack, I was very creeped out. If you love that historical element as well, and you like a smart kind of thriller, mystery, yes, would recommend this for sure. It was really good. And then the final book that I read in April, I don't have a physical copy of, but that's Bringing Down the Duke by Evie Dunmore. This is a book that also has a ton of buzz, and it is well deserved. So I'm sure, like the rest of you, you're always a little hesitant to go into a book that is so popular because you're like, is it really going to live up to what I think it's going to? And this one was that for me. So I went into it knowing all of the buzz and thinking that, oh, I'm just going to enjoy this. It's probably going to be a 3.5-star read for me. It'll be a cute romance, and I actually really enjoyed it more than I thought that I would, and ended up giving it 4.5 stars. So Bringing Down the Duke is about a character of Annabelle, and she's just started school at Oxford, and she's there on scholarship. And so part of her agreement is that she's going to be working with this women's suffrage movement, and as part of this women's suffrage movement, they have to target these men of political power to kind of get them to their cause. And so they kind of approach them and try to talk to them and get them to see their side and things like that. And so she ends up targeting Sebastian, who is this duke, really super cold, and he has a lot of influence. He's kind of in the queen's pocket. And the party that he's going to be representing does not stand for what she's promoting for these women's rights at all, but it's their story, and I don't want to give too much because I gotta say, I didn't know a lot of details going in, and there were so many plot elements in this book that I really love seeing played out. And I don't want to say what they are though, because I want you, if you like those elements, to just happen upon them and be happy about it like I was. I loved the Duke character himself, that he really gave me like a Mr. Darcy feeling, and I really liked that. And also the Duke has kind of a past, like he's a divorced man, which is not, you know, a thing that has happened a lot in this time. And Annabelle, our main character, is considered like a spinster, and the fact that she's going to Oxford as well just makes it even like more so unladylike for her time. But I really loved this. I'm so excited that this is a part of a series, because I will for sure be reading the rest of the books in the series if they are going to be anything like this one. I think it was good, worth the read, and I would say it's worth the hype. Like I get it now, and I was so hesitant going into it because I really wanted to read it, but I also knew that it may be overshot. But no, it's worth it. So those are the 3 books that I ended up reading in the second half of April. If you've read any of them, please let me know so we can talk about them in the comments. But thank you so much for watching, and happy reading.